Why are there so many confusing behaviors in the animal kingdom that look like self-harm? Let us get straight to the answer. They are not looking for pain at all. They are stacking mental buffs for themselves. You thought only humans knew how to live in the moment. On the server called Earth Online, all living things figured out spiritual snacks a long time ago. Today, let us take a look at some of the most outrageous addicts in nature. First, let us talk about cedar waxwings. These guys are basically the repeat drunk driving offenders of the bird world. When autumn arrives and temperatures drop in North America and Scandinavia, the berries hanging on trees start doing things they technically should not be doing. Wild yeast inside them ferments the sugar into ethanol. When these birds see those berries, they devour them like they are free. They eat far beyond the limits of reason. The result is that their flight system crashes on the spot. Their movement becomes spiral-shaped, as if the steering wheel has been turned all the way to one side. And then they slam headfirst into innocent windows. Even when they are sober, that kind of speed is already embarrassing to watch. In Canada, wildlife rehabilitation centers have to take in batches of drunk driving birds every fermentation season. They put them into VIP sobering-up rooms lined with soft padding and force them through the recovery phase. This is not a joke. Birds are small. A little too much ethanol can be fatal. It is common for whole flocks of birds to lose all their health bars together because they cannot control their mouths. Pure opportunistic greed eats them straight onto a dead-end road. Next, let us talk about the kangaroos in Tasmania. That place is one of the world's main legal producers of medicinal opium, supplying about half of the world's output. These kangaroo bros treat the protective fences like decorations. They jump straight in and turn poppy fields into an all-you-can-eat buffet. After chewing down raw opium alkaloids, they get so high on the spot that they cannot find north, south, east, or west. Once they are buzzed, they start jumping in place and spinning wildly in the fields until they fall over, literally stomping out several round and flat crop circles for the farmers. With a little imagination, this could easily be turned into 10 episodes of a UFO documentary. The key point is that they even understand the concept of returning to a fixed spot. Every night they show up on time at the same refresh point to refill, forming a serious habitual behavior. How ridiculous was this? In 2009, the local attorney general had to publicly testify in parliament and admit that kangaroos were indeed illegally taking drugs. After all, poppy farming is legal, but the kangaroos never applied for permit. If kangaroos are just looking for fun, then horses on the grasslands of the western United States are actively applying a vicious debuff to themselves. They eat a low-growing plant called locowweed. This thing contains a compound called swainsonine. How toxic is it? It interferes with key enzymes required for normal cell function. In other words, it eats away at your nervous system from the inside, bite by bite. After eating locowweed, a horse's sanity bar is instantly cleared to 0. Its behavior becomes extremely chaotic. One second it stands completely still, staring into the void. The next second it suddenly goes berserk and attacks. Even when walking on flat ground, it can trip over its own feet. The creepiest part is that even after such a terrible experience, they do not think about blacklisting the plant. Instead, they actively seek out locowweed again. They do not even look at normal pasture grass anymore. This is no longer a simple learned preference. This is like equipping a cursed armor set that cannot be taken off. All the way until irreversible neurological damage is done, and the animal is completely ruined. Because of this, locowweed has become one of the most economically damaging poisonous plants in North America. Of course, the most famous legal substitute has to be cats and catnip. The mechanism behind this thing is basically a genetic blind box. Once catnip leaves are damaged, they release nepotalactone. As soon as this substance enters a cat's nose, it directly imitates the signal of sex pheromones and sends fake instructions to the brain. After inhaling it, cats roll all over the floor, drool like crazy, yowl randomly, and enjoy around 10 minutes of free and unrestrained mental pleasure. Then once it is over, they switch back to their cold and noble mode in 1 second, pretending nothing happened at all. Here comes the key point: this thing depends on genes. Around 30% of cats are naturally immune to it. You could use catnip as a pillow for them, and the only thing in their eyes would still be clear, innocent stupidity. But once the genes match, it does not matter whether it is a house cat, a lion on the African savanna, a leopard, or a jaguar. As soon as it encounters catnip, it instantly turns into a weird little goblin. The dignity of the king of beasts drops to 0 on the spot. Fortunately, this buff appears to be completely harmless. It is basically a side-effect-free experience card officially issued by Earth Online. At this point, we have to do a little calculation. People are always saying that elephants get drunk after eating marula fruits that have fallen to the ground. Scientists pulled out their calculators and discovered that this is basically wishful thinking. An adult elephant weighs around 4,000 to 7,000 kilograms. If you want to get a giant of that size even slightly tipsy, it would have to consume an unrealistic, massive amount of fruit in one sitting. And those fruits would all have to be highly fermented and ripe. In reality, this is basically impossible. The elephant would probably burst from overeating before the alcohol debuff could even stack up. However, elephants really do have a special liking for fermented fruits. After eating them, their behavior does seem to change a little. Some scholars have argued that elephants may specifically pick out the ripest fruits, and over time this could produce subtle effects. So whether elephants actually get drunk or not is currently still a Schrödinger's intoxication in the academic world. Mysterious, unresolved, and not yet fully settled, but reindeer are different. They are true hardcore players of the polar regions. In the icy wilderness of Siberia, they will go to great lengths to scrape through the snow just to find fly agaric mushrooms. Yes, the same poisonous mushrooms from fairy tales, the kind with red caps and white spots. These mushrooms contain ibotenic acid. After eating them, reindeer can experience delirium and intense hallucinations. They shake their heads wildly, run around everywhere, and even make extremely strange calls. What is even more impressive is that ancient Siberian shamans discovered that a reindeer's liver is basically a top-tier biological purifier. It can convert the harsher toxins in the mushroom into a more purified psychoactive substance, muscimol. So the shamans did not eat the mushrooms directly. They lined up to drink the urine of reindeer that had eaten the mushrooms. This move took ecological recycling and middleman profit to an extreme. Some scholars even suspect that the legend of Santa Claus wearing red clothes and flying with reindeer may have come from the hallucinations of shamans who drank reindeer urine. Now let us turn our eyes to the ocean. Dolphins play this game in an even more refined and aristocratic way. A BBC documentary once filmed a group of young dolphins surrounding a pufferfish. They were not trying to eat it. Instead, they took turns lightly biting it with their mouths, then carefully passed it to the next dolphin. Pufferfish contain tetrodotoxin. In large doses, it is a lethal instant-kill weapon. But through this method, dolphins precisely control the amount, going for microdose therapy style. After taking it in, they collectively enter a dazed, blissful floating state. Some even float at the surface and stare fixedly at their own reflections in the water, as if contemplating dolphin life. Although some scientists question whether this really counts as drug use, the scene looks so much like humans gathering around and passing a cigarette that it is very hard to explain it as normal predatory behavior. This operation is full of ritualistic confusion. Back on land, the green monkeys on the Caribbean island of St. Kitts are basically a one-to-one replica of human drinking culture. For generations, these monkeys have stolen tourist cocktails and consumed fermented sugarcane. Over time, even their genes seem to have been soaked in alcohol. When scientists studied them, they discovered that the monkeys' drinking personality types were highly similar to those found in human society. Most of them are social, moderate drinkers. A small group are heavy drinkers who need to drink every day. A tiny minority will drink themselves into a coma-like blackout. Another group are model students who do not touch alcohol at all. What makes it even more painfully familiar is that among the binge-drinking group, the proportion of adolescent male monkeys is surprisingly high. Isn't this script a little too familiar? Because they are so similar to humans, these monkeys, who were basically forced into alcohol dependence, have now become an excellent scientific model for humans studying the genetics of alcohol addiction. If we are talking about going hard, the bighorn sheep of the Canadian Rockies definitely deserve a spot near the top. For a mouthful of hallucinogenic colored lichen on cliff faces, they are willing to travel across mountains and valleys. That lichen has almost no nutritional value and is extremely tough, in order to scrape it off. Bighorn sheep gnaw at it with tremendous force, wearing down their eating tools until their teeth are ground flat all the way to the gums. For wild animals, ruined teeth are basically a death sentence. This is the ultimate example of trading health points for mana points. As long as the spirit feels good, the body can be scrapped without hesitation. Wildlife expert Ronald K. Siegel saw through this long ago. This kind of low-nutrition, high-cost, self-destructive obsession is not about filling the stomach at all. It is purely about that one bite of pleasure beyond calories. But if we are talking about turning this into something with scale and culture, then we have to mention the king of the Amazon rainforest, the jaguar. This guy is not simply looking for fun. He is going for enlightenment. Deep in the rainforest, jaguars will deliberately and regularly bite on the copy vine. This vine is one of the core ingredients used by indigenous peoples to brew ayahuasca, one of the most powerful hallucinogenic plant medicines. After chewing it, the jaguar drools, shakes its head, has a dazed look in its eyes, and starts tracking things that do not exist, as if communicating with higher dimensional beings. In local indigenous legends, the jaguar is not a beast that simply got high. It is an animal teacher of plant medicine. It was the jaguar that first showed humans which plants could connect to the spirit world. Humans are merely apprentices copying homework from this big cat teacher. Even bees, which usually seem like the hardest working creatures, have their own unspeakable secrets. When they collect fermented nectar, they also ingest ethanol. After drinking too much, they also lose their sense of direction and stagger around. But the most impressive part is their extremely strong social discipline. At the entrance of the hive, there are always sober guard bees standing watch. When they encounter a colleague wobbling home drunk, they physically intercept them. "Hey bro, Don T drunk, drive your way inside. Go sober up somewhere else first." This is basically treating drunkenness as a form of biological contamination and isolating it. If some drunkard repeatedly refuses to listen and insists on forcing their way in, the guard bees will mercilessly bite off its legs. This brutal but efficient form of physical persuasion proves that a bee colony independently invented both bars and bouncers long before humans did. Finally, there are those inconspicuous songbirds, such as various little sparrows and finches. They deliberately eat the seeds of morning glory plants. Morning glories look beautiful, but their seeds contain ergoline compounds including LSA, a natural relative of the famous hallucinogen LSD. After birds eat them, their perception changes and they enter a sedated state. Because birds are too small and move too quickly, even if they are high, they do not visibly stagger and fall over like mammals. So it is very difficult for humans to notice. But that is exactly what makes it terrifying when you think about it. Across how many species, over how many millions of years, have animals quietly been giving themselves mental buffs without us ever noticing? After going through all of this, do you feel like animals have no limits and endless tricks when it comes to chasing pleasure? But have you ever thought about this? On the server called Earth Online, who is the real #1 addict? It is the terrifying upright ape, humans. Animals are at most casual jungle players picking up randomly spawned wild buffs in the field. At most they are like jaguars treating it as some kind of mystical ritual, but humans. We planted poppies across entire plains. We shoved sugarcane into factory assembly lines and brewed it into hard liquor. We threw coca leaves into precision laboratories and refined them into white powder. From accidental discoverers in nature, we evolved into the ultimate controllers of addiction mechanisms, global wholesalers, and also the biggest victims. What animals pursue is nothing more than a brief moment of pleasure in a harsh struggle for survival. But humans turned it into a massive business, a violent industry, and even launched wars over it. So on the Earth Online server, there has never been any true hierarchy of noble or lowly life. There are only different species and different survival strategies. We laugh at animals for being obsessed. Animals laugh at us for being absurd. So here is the question. Do you think humanity's industrialization of pleasure is a miracle of evolution or the biggest bug in the system? Drop a couple of lines in the comments.